episode 297, Ironman Lake Placid with the overall winner, Matt Russell. I am so excited about this episode. I've been trying to get in touch with Matt Russell for months, I'm telling you. And I was finally able to get in touch with him, sit down and talk with him about his overall win at Lake Placid. This is an amazing episode. I can't thank Matt enough for his time, and I am grateful that he was able to come on the show, spend some time with me, and talk about what it's like to win Ironman Lake Placid. He has so many deeply tied roots in the area to New York. This race means a lot to him to win, and we go in detail about what it's like for him to win this race, but also what it's like overall just for him to race this race. I hope you enjoy this race, and welcome back to the show. Welcome to the Pursuit of the Perfect Race. I'm Coach Terry Wilson, and with each episode, I bring stories of athletes to you that share their experiences at races in order for you to learn how to have your perfect race. We will hear stories from athletes of all ages, abilities, and races of all distances. So regardless of where you fit in, there's something in it for you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Now let the pursuit begin. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pursuit of the Perfect Race. Today I'm talking with professional triathlete Matt Russell about his recent win at Ironman Lake Placid. He finished in 8 hours, 27 minutes, and 57 seconds. He also set a bike course record on the way to his win, and this race took place on July 28th, 2019. Welcome to the show, Matt. I look forward to talking to you about your race, man.
Thanks for having me on the show.
Man, I've been trying to get you on for a while. I'm actually really stoked that you're spending some time with me today. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course. Glad to be talking to you and everyone to listen to this. Yeah.
Awesome. So I know you've done a few Ironmans already this year. You've done plenty of 7.3s already. Why did you want to do Lake Placid, man?
That's kind of a long answer, but, Lake Placid is kind of like, my backyard. I grew up in, Lisbon, New York, a couple hours, north, of the venue. And, it all started with, Lake Placid, my journey with triathlon. I did the Monday night mini triathlon series, that's been going on for over 30 years. When I was way back in high school, 18, I was only 18 at the time. A bunch of my buddies and we went down, and we did the mini triathlon, and it was a sprint triathlon, and, it was a 400 meter swim, and I literally had to doggy paddle, and I think I was the last one out. And, in the 400 swim, it took me 13 minutes. And at that pace, I wouldn't even make the Ironman cutoff. So yeah, I literally couldn't swim. Then I kind of took a 10-year break, and then rolling into, 2010, I ended up doing my first, full Ironman, which was Ironman Lake Placid. And that was also my first professional race. And, I also raised, money in memory of my mother, who I lost to Lou Gehrig's disease when I was 13 years old. So, Lake Placid definitely, holds a special place in my heart. And, also growing up, I've snowshoed in the Adirondacks. I've hiked, Mount Marcy, which is the highest peak, in the Adirondacks, as well as lots of other, high peaks in there. There's 46 of them. And then, some camping, spent New Year's there. I've cycled up and even did a running race up, Whiteface Mountain there. I've cross country skied Jacket Rabbit Trail right in, Lake Placid. I just have tons of memories. And also when I was in high school, my buddies and I, we camped out in my van. We slept in the van, and the next morning we woke up early and volunteered at Ironman Lake Placid. So I know exactly what it's like. I've been on the other spectrum of Ironman Lake Placid, watching it, volunteering, did that for a couple of years. So obviously with having all those memories, I wanted to come back to Ironman Lake Placid. And the nice thing is right now, I have the next week or so to spend with family, and my sister's coming up with her family. And it's a kind of two birds, one stone. Get to do a race and spend some quality time with the family.
Wow. Like, I didn't realize, I knew when I was watching the live that they said that you were like a hometown hero, but I didn't realize like it was so deeply rooted.
Yeah. It's a place, like I said, I have a lot of great memories there. And, that was my fourth time racing. I did it in 10, 11, and 12. And then I think I missed a year. And then once they started doing the alternating female pro race only, male pro race only. And I think one year they didn't even have any pros there. And then in 2017, which was when it was a male pro race, I wanted to do it. I signed up for it. But my son, my wife was a little bit late, or I guess my son was a little bit late, and he was born July 7th. And it was just too close to the race for me to leave the family. So I was really looking forward to doing this race. And I was already qualified for Kona. And I was the only person racing that was already qualified for Kona. So there wasn't any pressure on me. And it was still a very good field. I think there was six other athletes, besides myself, who had won an Ironman. So the competition was really good, but I just wanted to get out there and do the best I could. And I left it all out there on this past Sunday.
Nice. So let's talk about your races leading up to this, which would basically count as your training going into this race. I know you did Ironman Frankfurt where you got your slot for Kona this year. What other races did you do, and what was your training like going into this race?
So I ended up I'll rewind just a little bit before that. I wanted to get my slot at Ironman, Texas, which is North American Championships, and my training was going well. And unfortunately, it didn't go to plan, mainly because my neck on the antagonist side of where I had the accident in 2017 Kona, they're working overtime, and just because of the muscles on my other side of the neck I severed my neck muscles. So they still gave me some issues during the race. And, I found through the more Ironmans I do, the better it gets. The pain scale was like a 7 out of 10 when I raced at Ironman Texas. And then my next Ironman, it was like a, 2 to 3. I could still feel it. But it wasn't giving me any issues. So my next full Ironman, was Ironman Frankfurt, which was the last weekend in June. And I wanted to secure my spot to get back to Kona. And I did. I finished 6th overall, and I did get a spot. And then literally exactly a week later, I raced Challenge Roth, and I did pretty well there. I wasn't as sharp as I wish I was. It wasn't my first back-to-back race. I did a back-to-back race way back in 2012. I did Mount Tremblant, was 3rd, and then exactly a week later, I won Ironman Canada. And that was 7 years ago. So I'm a little bit older. I'm 36 now, so I don't recover quite as fast as I used to, but I still had a pretty decent race, and it was a very competitive field. There was a total of 6 out of top 10 guys were there from Kona. So it was very competitive, and I finished 9th there, and I was happy with my effort in my race, considering all things considered. And then I had about almost 2-week break or 3-week break. It was actually exactly 29 days that I raced 3 Ironmans. So Ironman Lake Placid was the 3rd Ironman, and within 29 days. And in between that, I think my longest ride, I think I got in between Challenge Roth and Lake Placid. I got in, I think my longest bike was 4.5 on the trainer. I do all my riding on the trainer, and my longest run was only 13, but I didn't need to get into super long runs just because I had raced a couple Ironmans.
So you're just more like maintaining them.
Yeah. And the biggest thing for recovery is sleep. So I tried to get as much good sleep as I can just keep the body loose really. So I didn't have I think the week before Ironman Lake Placid, I think I trained about 27 hours. Not super high, but not super low, but enough to keep the engine running.
All right. Now, going into, well, I'll just back up some. You did something interesting over in Europe with Infinite and the sweat test. You want to talk about that?
Yeah, I did. I actually did a bunch of testing over there. I did VO2 testing, lactate testing on the swim, bike, and run. And then I also did the sweat test. And the great thing with the sweat test, you do it once in your life, and that number will never change, which is great. And the sweat test, I did it on the bike, and they do a bunch of places I think there's multiple ways to do it, but the test that I did, I think I had 3 little, almost look like big Band-Aids that you put on. I think there is one in the leg, one in the arm, and one in the back, on the back, and they're able to take that and see how much I sweat per liter. So my number was 500. I think it was 520 milligrams, which per liter, that is, and which is very little considered. The spectrum is 200 up to 2200. So I guess the middle range would be kind of more like about 1300 milligrams. But so I'm on the low spectrum. So that was really good to know moving forward into my future races. And it all depends on how hot the race is and how much you sweat. But the great thing with Infinite Nutrition is I can customize that. I can customize how much electrolytes and sodium that's in there. And it's like I felt like it was pretty close before, but I even optimized it even more. So, and yeah, obviously on race day, I felt great. No nutrition issues, no cramping, body felt great. And that's the benefit of doing tests like that and knowing your body and having great sponsors.
Okay. Now on the bike on race day, you'd make this one bottle or your nutrition have 1900 calories for the bike ride, which is about 430 calories an hour. That's a lot of calories for a lot of folks. And you're able to consume all that with no GI distress?
Yeah. I've talked to a few other people. I know some other athletes consume right around 400, just a little over 400. I believe the body can only consume roughly about 370 calories per hour. So I'm definitely a little bit more on the higher spectrum, but that's what my body likes, and I don't have any GI distress or anything. And what I do, I split it in 2 bottles. So I just have like about, what would it be? 950 calories in one bottle. And then, I have to consume that halfway through the bike ride, and then I take the other bottle and consume it. And, sometimes I don't always consume the whole thing, but I have it there just in case I need it. So some races I might only consume maybe 1800. But I have a little bit extra there if I need it. And, but I'm glad I needed everything on the Ironman Lake Placid bike course.
Okay. So going into Lake Placid here, it doesn't seem like you're a stranger to the area, so you know where you're going to be staying and logistics-wise. But going from Frankfurt to Roth, then to Lake Placid, this is a lot of traveling. How are you traveling so much with your bike and making sure you don't lose anything? Because that's really far apart from all of them, and then you have to get to every single race prepared with logistically. I mean, that's a lot going on, right?
Yeah. A lot is going on. And you can't always necessarily count 100% on airlines and having your equipment come, or having your equipment come in one piece. That is, I've had issues with all of the above. Everything was kind of pretty smooth sailing over to Europe. However, it makes it a little bit more challenging when you have a 2-year-old. And my son actually turned 2 on during Challenge Roth on that day. And let me tell you, you have to bring a car seat, you have to bring a stroller, and obviously my son, and diapers, and it's just like a whole extra thing besides a bike. So that makes it a tough. But the travel, I just drove, and it was I think a few hour drive from Frankfurt to Roth, and then flying back, everything was okay. But honestly, I feel like for me, the recovery after the second Ironman wasn't that bad. It was the recovery from the jet lag coming back. And it was really tough because, especially with my son, he doesn't know what's going on, and you try to get him on a schedule. And then I remember one night he was up pretty much the whole night, and I'm tired, I want to go to sleep. And then our flight was delayed by almost 4 hours, flying from Germany into Florida. And that was very, very difficult because we actually sat on the plane for 3 hours, and we didn't even, it was a 10-hour direct flight. And we ended up being on that plane for, I think, nearly 14, 15 hours. And we were supposed to get in at I think 4:30. We didn't get in until 8:30, didn't get in bed till 10:30. And then my body's wide awake at 2. And for those 3 days after, it was very difficult just because that whole jet lag, not getting a lot of sleep. I wasn't recovering. I wasn't really training much because my body felt horrible. And so I almost felt depressed in a way. I was like, this is the post Ironman blues. This is what maybe a normal person feels like, because typically I usually bounce back very well. But after that third day, the next day, I'm like, all right, I need to get into a routine. Woke up, went for a run, and did a swim, and did a kind of got into my normal groove. And then thankfully for Lake Placid, I use Tri-Bike Transport, and that's so much easier because you don't have to worry about with the bike flying with it, especially with all the baby stuff. And I wanted to use them for Europe because they do go over there, and I was really excited about it, but they're very strict, as in you do one race with customs, whatever goes in has to come out. So I couldn't fly in, and I couldn't go Ironman Frankfurt and then go to Challenge Roth right after. It had to come inbound and outbound, same race. So I was pretty bummed about that. But yeah, I think once I got into a normal groove and got through the jet lag or post Ironman blues, you could say, I was able to bounce back pretty well.
Okay. So let's just talk a little bit about your mentality with your training. I know you do pretty much everything on the trainer, if not all of it on the trainer, from what I understand. Why is this?
For a number of reasons. Obviously safety is a big issue. And I've traveled and lived in so many different places, and sometimes you don't know if where you're riding safe, or to try to find a route or try to map it out. And then you have stoplights, and you have flat tires, and try to find places where you can get water, food. I don't need to worry about any of that. And it just saves time. I just go and hop on the bike and ride, and I get my workout done. And it's pretty efficient because on a trainer, you're never coasting. Outside, sometimes a third of the ride, you're coasting or stopped at a stoplight or going downhill. And it's just really efficient. And I've been doing this even before my Kona accident in 2017. And a lot of people mentally can't do it, but I just get into a routine, and I do a number of things. Listen to podcasts. Um, I'll watch movies, YouTube, listen to music, just zone out, and I'll ride anywhere between, I guess on a down week might be 10 hours to up to 20 hours a week on the trainer.
Man, that's a lot of time on the trainer.
Yeah, and I think it makes me mentally tough. And once I come to race day, but a lot of people can't handle it. But I think I have a mental advantage over a lot of people because I can.
Man, so with that's just the bike, right? I mean, then you have the running and the swimming as well. Are there ever days for you where you just mentally don't want to get on the bike anymore, or mentally you don't want to run anymore?
Yeah, I think everyone goes through those types of have those issues. You just kind of get into a rut, and yeah, definitely. I'd be lying to say, oh no, every day I have so much motivation to try to crush it. No, definitely not. There's days when you get into a rut, but that's why I think it's really important to have a little bit of an outlet. I do pretty much all of my riding and running by myself. However, I do have that outlet with the swim. But I think, I mean, if I have in the past, have had even a trainer buddy have him come over and ride for a few hours, and that makes time go by fast. I think that helps to get over that mental, lack of motivation. But, yeah, it's not always easy all the time. And, like anyone, you kind of do have to have a grind. But it's also important, I think, to have down days to look forward for those, and also kind of down weeks. Like this week, I'm recovering from Ironman Lake Placid, so it's a down week, and it's a mental break, and it kind of sets the reset button for the next training block leading into the next race.
Right, which is Kona, right?
Yeah. So this fall, what I'm going to be doing is the same setup as last year. Well, last year I raced Ironman Mount Tremblant, and then I did Chattanooga and then Kona. I'm not going to do Mount Tremblant this year, but I will be doing Chattanooga, which is 13 days out from Kona. And a lot of people, I would say 99% of people won't do that just because it doesn't work for them. But for me, my body tends to get a lot of fitness from racing an Ironman, and as long as you can recover from it and bounce back, you can do well. And it does well for me, and I don't think anyone can argue with that. With last year was second at Ironman Chattanooga, and then 13 days later was 6th at Kona. So it works for me, and if it's not broken, don't fix it. So that's what I'm going to do again this year.
Okay. So I just had a brain fart. Sorry. It happens. As far as when did you actually want to start traveling to Lake Placid, and get your lodging up there, logistics? What does that look like for you?
So leaving for Lake Placid, I actually had a direct flight right out of Sarasota into Syracuse, and they only fly there, I think, a couple times a week. And we flew out on a Wednesday. We got in, I think, 6 p.m. on Wednesday. My dad picked me up. We flew into Syracuse. My dad picked me up in a 2-hour drive to his house. Spent the night at his place. And then the next morning, 2-hour drive to Lake Placid. And our lodging was in the perfect ideal location, as in where we were standing. You can see Mirror Lake where you swim. The road's right there where I cycle by twice, and the run is right there too. So you couldn't get a better spot. And, I really have to thank, Duraderm Sport, one of my sponsors, which is like a liquid bandage, that helps with like chafing and kills any kind of bacteria, whether if you have, blisters, even saddle sores or crashes. They actually had a place there, and they're like, hey, you can take our place. And that was the best setup. So much less stress for myself and my family. So it was really a blessing. And everything, came together. It was like the perfect weekend. So so I know some people like to come out to races 2 weeks beforehand, but I find it I would say almost if you're traveling overseas, like when I raced Ironman Frankfurt, with the whole jet lag and everything flying out there, I got in. I think it was like on a Sunday I think it was a whole week beforehand, just to kind of get acclimated to the time zone. But yeah, that's kind of what rolled in this past week.
Okay. So after you got to Lake Placid, you got there on, I believe, Thursday. Is that right?
Yes, Thursday.
Okay. Correct. So what are you doing Thursday, Friday, and Saturday?
Oh, I had a whole itinerary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I mean, everything was pretty much booked. I think Thursday, like literally I rolled in and had about 15 minutes, to get, or 15, 20 minutes to get to an Ironman interview. And then I did the interview, and then I had all my gear at Tri-Bike Transport. So I had to pick up my bike and like all my race kit and helmet and wheels. Everything was with Tri-Bike Transport. So I picked up all that stuff, and then I think went to the grocery store, and it just from there. I mean, I had things lined up for a bunch of things for sponsors, but a bunch of other things I had to do, and time went by fast. But I always made sure spend some time with the family. And one of the most enjoyable things that I did when I was there, both days, was just jump in Mirror Lake and swim next to a canoe that my dad had made, with my dad canoeing, my son in the canoe, and my wife as well. And so on Friday I swam 45 minutes, and then on Saturday I swam about 25 minutes. And I don't know if you've ever been to Lake Placid, but it's a beautiful, special place, and they're beautiful days. And that's one memory that I'll always remember. Swimming next to my family, and they're really enjoying it, and I'm enjoying it. And I probably stopped at least a half a dozen times each time, and my son was enjoying it too. So that's and those are the type of memories that I want to remember. It's just I try to spend time with family, and I try to appreciate the little things, and it's something that I'll never forget.
Wow, I was there in 2017, the year that you weren't there, and I volunteered, and it's a really awesome place.
Yeah, it is, and I believe it used to be called Ironman USA because it was the first one in the United States, and it's the longest one, I think, in the United States. I think 1999 was the first one in the continental United States. That is, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that's, as far as my knowledge, that's what I know. And the oldest one in North America is Ironman Canada in Penticton. But Ironman Lake Placid is one of those things. If you haven't done it, it's a bucket list race
for sure. Now, what about the day before the race? Are you looking to get a certain breakfast, lunch, and dinner in with your nutrition? What's this look like?
So the day before the race, I kind of had two breakfasts. I woke up, I don't know, probably about 6 a.m. Ate some food and coffee, and then I think, I don't know, had a bagel or something like that. And then at 9, I had a function with Ironman Foundation. And it was a breakfast there, and like Mike Riley, he's an ambassador, so he came, and just anyone that's involved with Ironman Foundation was there, and which is great. They do this, I think, at most Ironmans. This is my second time. This is my first year being with them, and I also did this at Ironman North American Championships in Texas. And that lasted a while, but that was my second breakfast was pancakes. So I guess you could say kind of carbo loading. and then, what else did I do? I went for an hour bike. And I knew my bike, I knew I was feeling good on the bike and I was going to have a pretty good ride because my last half hour on the bike, my watts were 176, no, sorry, not 100, 276 watts, but my heart rate was only 126. And my max heart rate on the bike is 187. So I was like, wow, my legs are there. Like I've got good power. I'm like, I'm going to have a good ride tomorrow. So that's what I did on the bike. And then I got off the bike and just ran 2 miles, like, I don't know, like 6:45, 6:50 mile pace. And then later on, I went for a swim, with my family in the canoe, for about 25 minutes. And, I mean, before I knew it, it was like, well, then I got to check the bike in and then have an early dinner. And then I think some friends came over and went to bed semi early. And then, race morning, it comes quick.
Man. So, like I can't imagine pushing those numbers with such little effort. Like you're just on another level than I am, for sure. That's nuts.
Well, it's, I think, it's one of those things that takes years and years to keep developing and evolving. And, I think I'm 36 now. So usually they say in the late 30s is when you start to hit your Ironman peak. I mean, that's when Craig Alexander broke, the course record at Ironman World Championships. And, so I still feel like I have a handful of years, good years in me.
Right. So the day before the race, you're checking your bike in. How was bike check-in here?
Pretty smooth. I was only in transition for about 10 minutes. I just pretty much rocked my bike, put my transition bags in there and was gone. And obviously I looked at some of the other bikes and, it was kind of caught to my attention because like normally when I wheel my bike in, I'm riding a tri-rig Omni, and there was actually another professional that had a tri-rig Omni in there. And I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. And I do like checking other people's bikes out. So I did take a few minutes to do that. And I'm kind of a geek with bikes and, as in I build up all my bikes, my own. And, I'm usually pretty mechanically, I can fix pretty much everything as long as I have the tool. But that's why I love seeing like what people run for their setup. And yeah, I just love the bike. So, and I think it's very important. It's really important to know your bike, especially if something happens to it, on race day.
Right. So, the day before the race, you're going to bed. How do you sleep and what time are you waking up on race day?
Let's see. I don't know exactly what time I went to sleep. Probably right around 9, maybe 9:30. And I sleep well the night before the race. I sleep pretty well. I think for this one, I woke up at 3 though, and I was a little bit restless from 3 to when I woke up at 4. But normally I can fall asleep pretty well and, I don't have any issues with that. I know a lot of people, they stress and they just toss and turn all night. I don't put any pressure on myself. And I think if you get good sleep, you're going to perform well. And I'm just like, oh, I'm tired and I want to get to sleep. Tomorrow's going to be a big day. I just fall asleep. And, that one thing I have been doing, this year is, I've been trying to take it to the next level. I have one, a sleep tracker. And it's with the ring. It's an Oura ring, Oura. And I just got one of those a few months ago. And it tracks a number of things like your body temperature, to your deep sleep, your heart rate variability, your resting heart rate. There's so many metrics, like when you go to bed, when you wake up, and it just gives you like when you're ready, you should probably take an easy day. So that's, I've kind of tried to take sleep to the next level, using that. But, thankfully I'm one of those people that, I can sleep pretty well for the most part.
Wow. So you get up on race day. What's your morning ritual like before you leave where you're saying to head down to transition and then to the swim start? What's this look like for you?
Let's see. For this race, was I think the first time ever, I actually came back to the condo. Typically once I go to transition, I go to the swim start, but I woke up at 4. I already had the coffee brewed. I had some, plain bagels. I think I had some peanut butter jelly on it. I had two bagels, peanut butter jelly, couple of cups of coffee. And then right around, put on, my race kit usually. What else? That's about it. And then I head down to get everything, my bottles out of the refrigerator because I make them the night before. And I go to transition, put my bottles in, put my shoes on, put my head unit on my bike, make sure everything's rolling there. And then, typically, like I said, I usually go straight to the swim start, but I just went, it was only about a 10-minute walk, and I actually jogged back. So it was probably like maybe a 6-minute jog, 5-minute jog back, kind of as a warm up back to the condo. And then at the condo, my dad, wife and son were all kind of waking up. And then I kind of stretched just a little bit. And then left at, what was it? 5:45, 5:50, because it's just a 10-minute walk to the race starts, and the race start was at 6:25. I got in about, I usually like to try to get in about a 10-minute warm up in the swim, but I think I only got maybe closer to a 5-minute warm up in the swim. And then, start was at 6:25.
Wow. So, you get everything ready at transition. You head over to the swim start. This is a little bit of a distance apart. I was there in 2017, so it's about a quarter mile, maybe a little bit more than that.
Yeah, it's probably about a quarter mile. I mean, especially when you hit transition, you got to run all the way down and then around and back up. So, yeah, it's a little bit longer of a transition, but hey, everyone has to do it.
Right. But they do carpet the whole thing.
Sorry, say that again? They what?
They do carpet the whole way.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly.
So you're over here at the swim start. You're over here with some amazing people. I mean, you have Sam Long, Brent McMahon. I mean, they're over there. And then what's the atmosphere around there like for you? Are you trying to stay in your own zone, trying to make some jokes, laugh? What's the atmosphere like for you?
Before the swim start?
Yes.
It just kind of, I think when I was walking to the start, Joe Gambles was right next to me. We briefly spoke or whatever, and just kind of focused on getting a warm up in, and then, right before I left to go swim, to do a swim warm up, obviously, hug and kiss my family, tell them I love them and everything. And then I'm off. And then, probably the most tense minutes are a few minutes before the race when you're kind of, standing or treading water. This was actually probably about a knee deep swim start. So kind of like a beach, but you're already in the water. But yeah, when everyone's ready to go, you're just waiting for the gun. It's like, when it's going to go, when is it going to go? That's probably the most, intense time. That time seems to go so slow.
Right. So knowing that this is, you go down, make a right, make another right, come back, you get out of the water, get back in the water, and do this 2 loops. Where are you seeing yourself in relationship to all the pros? Are you more on the right side, or are you in the middle? What's this look like?
I'm trying to think how long the start line was. Maybe 20 meters. And there was actually a fair amount of pros in there. I would say, I had a guess, maybe 35. And I think I was actually kind of in the middle. And it's funny, like literally probably 15, 20 seconds before the start, there was a whole bunch of fast swimmers on the right, like Igor Amarelli and Brent McMahon, and a few other people. They were kind of all on the right. And then they kind of, like one, I think, well, I don't know what happened, but one of them was like, oh, I'm going to go on the other side. One of the fast guys, I think, went on the other side, and everyone kind of, like, there was about 4 guys that followed. And I mean, with the swim start, it's all about getting out fast and catching some good feet. I knew I wasn't going to have the fastest swim. And I just wanted to catch some feet and hopefully have a good swim. And for me, a good swim is a deficit of, right around, 5 to 6 minutes ish, depending on, if the first person gets out in 47 minutes, I'll hopefully be 5 minutes out. If the first person gets out in like 50 minutes, I'll be, 6 and change back. And, the first lap, went really smooth. And yeah, I caught some feet, and I don't know exactly what my time was. But hopping in, I think there was a total of maybe about 4 or 5 of us together. And we were kind of, I think the third group, I think the first group kind of broke away. And there was maybe 4 of them swimming. And then there was the next group of maybe about 6, 7 guys. And then in my group, there was another, like, I don't know, maybe 5, 6 guys. And then the second loop was a little bit challenging because you have so many age groupers swimming the same course. Thankfully, they said the pros can swim inside the buoy line on the second lap, but they just need to make that turn around the turn buoys, the red buoys. And definitely making those turns around was tough, but there was even age groupers swimming inside, which they weren't supposed to be, which made it a little bit chaotic. So even our group got split up a little bit. But I did exit the water, and what was my time? I think like
56:42.
Okay, yeah, 56:42, which I think I was exactly 6 minutes and 50 seconds back from the lead swimmers, which isn't a bad swim for me. Kind of a normal swim, not my best, but not my worst. But I was happy with that, and getting out of the water, I knew Andrew Talansky, who was 10th at the Tour de France a number of years ago. He was next to me, and I know he's a strong cyclist. And also, not too far back from us, maybe only 20, 30 seconds, was Sam Long. And I know I've raced against him before, and I know he's strong on the bike. So I felt very confident that we were going to be able to move up on the bike.
Wow. Now, with this swim, something you didn't mention is that there's actually cables that you can sight on in the water.
Yeah. You almost don't even need to pick your head up. You really don't. And the lake, Mirror Lake, is like glass. However, when you have like 2,500 people or so in there, it gets a little bit choppy. But it is nice. It's a very nice swim, for an Ironman, as nice as you can get. And most of the time it's wetsuit legal, especially for the age groupers. The water temperature was 73.8. So the age groupers got to wear wetsuits, which makes it an even faster swim for them. And, but for us, our cutoff is like 71.5, 71.6. So it was non-wetsuit for us, which I was fine about. Yeah, it's just a great place, and that course is pretty much set up, I think, year round. So like if you wanted to go swim there now, you could go swim like the whole course right now. And because the cable is underneath, and it's like I said, there's some venues that you can't even swim until race day, or you might have a time slot, or just like Ironman Texas, you have a 2-hour time slot. With this one, you can go swim whenever you want, which makes it even more awesome.
That's really nice. So I know on your tri-rig bike, you have your auto wheels, you have a disc, and a pretty deep front wheel. I think it's 60 millimeters or so.
I think the front's 86.
86? Okay.
Yep.
I couldn't tell from the pictures that I saw. I was just taking best guess there. why did you use this setup? I mean, there was other pros that didn't even use a disc. So why would you opt for a disc? I mean, knowing that this is hilly course with over 7,200 feet of gain on it.
Yeah. I mean, the difference between the disc and not having a disc, is really going down to weight wise. And I don't know, it might be 150, 200 grams. I don't know exactly. That's just a ballpark guess. So maybe like, a third of a pound or half a pound max heavier. However, I know a disc is faster in the sense that as long as you're going, I think, 25 miles per hour or faster, that's when it really plays a big benefit, especially if there's wind. It can almost act like a sail. And having a deep front wheel is fast too. And interesting thing about Alta wheels, a couple interesting things. Well, first thing, they're actually based right out of Sarasota, Florida, which is pretty cool. That's where I live now. And, so they're right down the road. And, the cool thing about it is the owner, he used to race professionally, so he knows what to look for in wheels. And they make these wheels very durable. They've done tons of testing with other wheels, that they actually purchased themselves to see how stiff they are, and how strong they are for braking resistance, and how the rims really hold up and how the wheel really holds up. And I will say that the Alta wheels, if you're looking for a stiff wheel, that's fast and that's durable, you can't find a better wheel. And that's just them doing, and they, like, everything is standard. Like, their protocol is standard. They're not favoring any wheel company at all. They just do the test. And I believe they have the test somewhere on their either website or on their page on Facebook. But, one, I know the wheels are really stiff. And one, I think my overall average was over 25, and especially on the flats. And going downhill, there's a very fast descent. I got going 58.1 miles per hour downhill.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a little bit scary, in a way, but, you just gotta kind of trust yourself and just let it roll.
Man, like, I've been 48. I've been just a little over 50, but man, pushing over that, like, things are going by really quick, and you're only wearing spandex.
Yeah, spandex and a helmet on skinny tires. Yeah. Yeah. But, yeah, everyone's kind of in the same boat. And, that's the thing, that I'm glad I'm in a sport, that it's different from the Tour de France. Like, if the Tour de France and people are going that fast and one person crashes, you're all going down. And that's a nice thing is, like, with triathlon, things are a little bit spread out, and I feel like there's sometimes a little bit more control. And I used to race, bikes in college too. And I wasn't a fan of going down when it wasn't my fault. You know what I mean? That's not,
Right.
that's not fun. But, yeah, thankfully, from my knowledge, everyone was safe on the course for the most part.
Right. So you head through transition. You're only in transition for 3 minutes and 11 seconds here, and then you head out on the bike ride. What's the first few miles like on the bike? Being that you're surrounded by some pretty good people, what's the atmosphere like? Are you trying to push it instantly? Are you trying to just get your bearings? What's this like?
First thing is really, getting your feet in the, cause like my shoes are already mounted to my pedals, getting my feet in, and, getting the body moving, just kind of, getting comfortable and getting also some nutrition in my system right away. Just kind of feeling where everyone's at. Like, I mean, there's not a ton you can do in the first few miles. Your adrenaline's going and you're probably pushing more power than you need to be the first few minutes anyways. But you really just trying to getting settled in the first couple of miles.
All right. Now, I know at mile, what is it, 11 or 12, that starts the big descent. Is that right?
Yeah, right about then. Yep.
Okay. How does this first descent go? Because this is a two-loop course. So you're going to see this again. How does the first descent go for you?
First descent went pretty well. I mean, Andrew Talansky and Sam Long were next to me, and I think Sam really tucked down low. There was times that he was going faster than me, but there was other times that I was going faster. I was just in arrow position, but I really tucked my head down low, pretty much right on my bottle. So I'm not creating as much drag. But I mean, there was times, that I was, I think we all kind of, rotated just a little bit, but there was definitely times when I was going faster than everyone, but there was other times that they were going faster than me. And really it's just getting down as fast as you can, and not using as much energy. So you're not pedaling when you're going probably over 40 miles an hour, or even sometimes 35, depending on the course. You're not pedaling too much because you'd be spinning 120 and you're burning too much, energy to try to get 1 mile per hour faster on something like that.
Right. Now, I know I didn't ask you earlier, but do you have a coach that y'all talked with of how to put a strategy together for this, or do you have your own idea? What's this like?
I have been pretty much self-coached my whole career. There was 1 year I had a coach for a little bit, but it didn't work out. Maybe partly because I'm stubborn. I like to kind of do my own thing, and a lot of people don't. A lot of coaches don't really understand my philosophy of racing so much, and they don't like, oh yeah, you can't do that. You need a taper, you need to do this. I'm like, well, I don't do a super big taper. And, but so yeah, maybe that's one reason, but no, I've been self-coached and I've learned a lot. And I'm always learning continuously every race that I do. However, that's actually going to change. And like I mentioned, I believe, earlier about how I did VO2 tests and lactate tests, earlier when in Germany, a few weeks ago or a month ago. That's for a reason. I'm actually going to start working, with a coach, and, he also has coached or is still coaching, like Peter Sagan, Tony Martin. So he definitely knows his cycling, but he also advises Cameron Worth. And out of all the athletes I know, Cameron Worth is the only other guy that I know that races pretty much just as much as me. His name, the coach's name is Sebastian Weber, and his big thing is a software called Inside. It's an acronym. It's like INSCYD. And the great thing with Inside is you can actually do a power test with cycling, that is power test, and with heart rate. And there's multiple, like a 15-second test, all out test, a 4-minute test, and like a 20-minute test that you do. And based on your heart rate and power, it's like a metabolic fingerprint, and it kind of lets you know, like, all right, you need to be doing more VO2 max. You need to be doing, or it shows you like what kind of where you're strong. And he's been able to do this, with this software, because like he also has lots of data from people using, blood lactate, where he can really dial it in. But there's a very good correlation with heart rate and power, that you can get enough information from that. And pretty much anyone can use this software platform, and you do it, and then you do the test and you get the information back, and it tells you exactly where you need to improve. So it's very valuable information. And that turned me on right from the get-go. And, I sat with him after Ironman Frankfurt and told him some of my goals, and he looked at my training and he looked at all my data, from what we did. And he believes that he can bring me up a notch. And I believe too, from what we've communicated and what we've done together, that I do want to take it to the next level. And it's very important because, I feel like I've gone as far as I can by myself, and I've done a pretty good job. I think I've had now 13 podiums in full Ironmans. I think six second place finishes, 6 third place finishes, and 2 Ironman wins now, as well as some success in Kona. But I don't want to just finish second and third anymore. I'm 36 now, and the way I see it is at most I have a handful of good years. So I don't want to, leave any stone unturned. Like, I want to make sure I'm capitalizing on every single race that, I know that I can win. And that's my goal. I want to finish better in Kona, and I want to win some more Ironmans. So I will be working with him leading into Kona.
That is pretty awesome. Like, I was just wanting to know more about your strategy about this race, but that was awesome. Like, that was a lot of details. So now you have a whole new battery of plans that you're going to be using for Kona this year and Chattanooga.
Yeah, yes and no. Because Sebastian, he's like, whatever you're doing, some of it's working. He's like, we're not going to change everything, and we're definitely not. But we're going to implement some things. And I really don't do a ton of bike workouts and running workouts. And he was pretty surprised at the success I've had with my training. And I feel like that's kind of a low hanging fruit. And that's probably one reason why I've done pretty well bouncing back from one Ironman to the next Ironman is I gain a lot of fitness from racing. And it's going to be nice to have a training schedule and be like, all right, this is what I need to do today. Let's do it and get it done with. And, I know he's the best in the world. He's going to coach me to where I want to be, that I'm working with the best. And, I don't just believe this. My fitter, who's Pork McGlynn, out of Psychologic, or Psychologic is his shop, and he lives in, his shop is in Scottsdale, Arizona. And he's fit me from the get go, the start of my career. And he's fit people like the whole Trek team, like Fabian Cancellara, the Schleck boys. And so he definitely knows his stuff. And he met up with him recently, and he's known him for a little while too. And he pretty much says, like, you're in the best. He's like, you're going to be working with the best. And that's like I said, that's what I want to. I want to start working with the best. And Sebastian's a great guy too. He took the time to meet up with me. It was like a 4-hour train ride up to Frankfurt to meet up with me, and so he believes in me, and that's part of racing, having the confidence. A very confident athlete is one of the most important things showing up on race day, because everything else that you've done, it doesn't matter. It matters on race day, being confident and being mentally strong. And I think that's something I sometimes lack a little bit. I do lack a little bit in confidence. And I think, throughout like Kona, I'm starting to build some confidence, but, I know I still have to work hard, and, it's not like, oh, I'm going to get out there, I'm going to smash everyone. No, there's a lot of things that come into play, and a lot of it is sometimes problem solving in the sense that something will go wrong. Like, I want to say, in a lot of races, sometimes it does take some luck, because sometimes you have mechanical, sometimes you might have something nutritionally a little bit off, like you're maybe not even consuming enough water, or just you're having a bad day. So it does take a little bit of luck, but there's lots of factors it takes to really execute on the day. And a big part of that is what I'm trying to do is put together a good team. And I feel like since my accident in Kona in 2017, I've been starting to put together a very strong team. I ended up working. I have been working since the accident, or not since the accident, since Kona of last year. I started working with a manager, and her name's Claire Duncan, and she's opened a lot of doors for me. And since the way I like to see it is, since the accident, I feel like doors have been opening for me, and just to being positive, trying to make this whole experience a positive thing versus a negative thing. And I think anyone can do this as long as you're positive, no matter what you're going through. If you try to make it a negative thing, your life is going to be negative. But if you can look at it a different way and like, all right, I'm going to make this fuel me and have it be a positive way, you can come out on top. And that's what I've been trying to do. I've been trying to make it like a positive experience, and that's why I feel like doors have been starting to open for me, and they just continue. It's been a blessing. The Lord has a plan for everything, and I feel like throughout this journey, He's been opening doors for me, and I've been trying to appreciate things as much as I can, and I think going through very dark, hard times has made me appreciate things so much more, like the accident in 2017.
Wow. Well, to get back to this race a little bit, what was your strategy for the bike ride? Did you want to hit a certain power for watts or a certain heart rate, split times? What's this look like?
The first thing I go by is feel. And I do have my power meter, and I kind of have a ballpark, and I know what I should be riding. Like a roughly normalized power is about, I would say, if I'm having a good day, about 285. And I was thinking like, if I have a good day, I can have normalized power right around there. Yeah, I was just going by, there's so many different dynamics. You kind of have to do your own race, but sometimes there's people that you're with and they might push a little harder than you want to. And there were times that I was pushing a little bit harder, but I was my body was feeling good. And, I was in a good place, both, mentally and physically. Yeah, like I mentioned earlier, riding with Sam Long and Andrew Talansky, and we moved up. We caught the second swim group, and there was probably about 6 or 7 guys in there, and I think that was about an hour and a half into the ride. And then on the second loop, things started to break up a little bit, especially after the descent, right around probably mile
65, 70.
Yeah, right around there. The second descent kind of broke up things a little bit, and I didn't descend the fastest down the second loop, and Sam Long did, and he was way in front of me. But I'm like, I'm just going to push it. My body's feeling good now. I kind of used it almost as recovery. And I was pushing hard. So for the next, cause he probably had at least a minute on me after the descent. And I probably pushed, 310 watts for 30 minutes to catch him or so, I want to say. And then I caught him and I was still feeling good. And when I caught him, pretty much at the same time, we caught the leaders, which was Brent McMahon and Igor Amorelli. I'm trying to think at what mile that was. Maybe around mile close to 80. And then for the next, 5-10 miles, they were there was a little bit out and back, and they were close, but I was in front. And then, I don't know where it was. I didn't make a necessary, I don't feel like I made a distinctive move. I just kept on riding strong, but the last probably maybe 25 miles, is where I kept on powering away. And typically at that point, the last 25 miles, they're tough because your power drops sometimes 20, 30 watts, sometimes even more. You don't necessarily feel the greatest because you want to get off the bike. My power numbers were still there. I wouldn't say, I felt like $1,000,000, but my power numbers were still there. And I was feeling pretty good. And then what I did is I just pushed it hard. I pushed it really hard. And I had no idea if I was going to get off with like a 2-minute gap or what it would be. I thought it was going to be a 2-minute gap. I had no idea how much time I was going to put into them. But I in the last 20 miles are pretty much uphill. Like you're climbing, I think over 2,000 feet. So it's pretty much all uphill. And that's where I put my time in, I guess. And I was definitely in the hurt box, I will say. And no question about that. I was in the hurt box, but I wanted to get off the bike with a little bit of lead. And I knew there were some good runners behind me, and I don't want to get off those. Brent McMahon ran a 2:43 and set the run course record. I know that run is tough. I'm not gonna run that fast. So I didn't want to be close to him. And and when I caught him at mile roughly 80 or whatever, you don't want to be with him getting off the bike.
Yeah, because in theory, you don't want to be within. You need to have at least a 15-minute gap in front of him.
Yeah.
Man, as far as the bike ride goes, what is some advice that you would tell someone to be aware of that hasn't done this course before?
Pre-ride it. Yeah, I would say pre-ride it. And the other set of advice is, I remember doing it my first few years, that second loop coming back from Wilmington up to Lake Placid, the last like 15 miles, that's all uphill or whatever, it feels like the hills grow. Like you're just getting tired and you're more fatigued, and it's tough, but save a little bit of energy for that backside because you're going to need it. That's the second time you do it. Thankfully, the hills didn't feel as bad for me this time, around, in 2019 as what they did in 10, 11 and 12 when I did the race. But, those are the two tips. Pre-ride it and make sure to save a little bit of energy for that last 15, 20 miles of the bike.
Okay. So, you get to T2, you set the bike course record with 4:27.27, and you're in T2 for less than 2 minutes. What's this like? Are you getting splits? Walk me through this. What's this like for you?
I don't think I had, I'm trying to think when I got a split. First off, I had no idea I broke the course record. I knew who held the course record, but I wasn't even looking at my time, and that wasn't my objective at all. And Steve Larson held the course record way back in 2001. And yeah, I had no idea about that. I don't even think I knew I broke the course record until after I finished of the bike, or not the bike. Sorry. I didn't know until I finished the whole race. Someone said, "You broke the course record." I'm like, "Oh, wow." That was not my objective. I knew I had a good bike, and my only objective was to make the second transition as fast as possible to get out in the run and execute a good run for myself. Not worry about anyone else, but just execute the run that I know I'm capable of. And I believe I did have a split. I can't remember where exactly. It must have been right around in a T2 area. Someone might have said something, or maybe shortly after. I mean, I was just in the zone, racing, and the first turnaround, so it's pretty much downhill. You're running in town, and it's all that kind of downhill. And then you get on the river road, and the river road, you're following a river. And that road is flat, but it isn't. It's a little bit deceiving because there actually is some rollies. It's a little bit rolly. And then the turnaround is right around, I think, mile 5.5 or 6. And then that's kind of when I had my first time split, and I could see Sam Long, and I think out of T2, he was 4 minutes and 30 seconds down from me. And then at that point, he was 3 minutes and 30 seconds. So he gained about a minute on me. I knew he was coming, obviously, but I kind of did the math. I'm like, well, if he's only gaining a minute on me for every 6 miles, it will be a close race. So I'm like, I'm just going to stick to my plan. I'm going to run consistent. And that's what I did. And I guess he did roll up to maybe 2.5 minutes behind me. I had no idea, how close he was getting. But he was starting to close hard at one point. And the only reason why I know this now is I actually started to watch a little bit Ironman live, Ironman Now, live on Facebook cause I had no idea what was really going on behind me, but I guess there was a lot of action of movement behind me.
All right. So, as far as what you're putting in your T2 bag, it's really just gotta be really basic. It seems like socks, shoes, cap, and that's it. And belt, race belt.
Yeah, my race belt. And actually in my race belt, I actually have, my watch, cause I don't race the swim and bike on my watch. I just put the watch on, while I'm running. And the other thing I do have a little flask of, infinite nutrition. Yeah, I carry that. It's not my all. I take some out on course, but I definitely I don't want to carry a big fuel belt, but I have a decent sized flask with. I'm trying to think how many calories I have in there now. I want to say it's at least half my calories, because I get my other calories at the aid stations, but I primarily, my main source is the infinite nutrition, which has the right amount of electrolytes, as well as I even race with a little bit of caffeine too, so that has it in there.
Okay. Now, as far as the heat and the humidity of the day, what did this feel like for you?
I could definitely feel the heat and humidity. And coming from Florida, it's very hot and humid. So yeah, I mean, if anyone's more acclimated to the heat and humidity, it's me, I guess. But I guess what you need to do, you just need to stay hydrated, through that. But it was a deceivingly slow run for everyone. I think it was because, a combination of things. The bike is really tough and the run is very tough with hills, and it was, hot and humid. So I think the combination of all that made it, a pretty slow run.
Okay. So up to mile 10 on the run, how are you feeling at that point? And then you're about to go up some hills here, coming back into downtown, and then go out on your second loop here in just a little bit. What's this like whenever you start getting around the crowds and all this? I mean, knowing that you're in first of this and holding on to it, and this is where a lot of people lose their lead. I mean, is this in your mind? What's this like?
I think right around mile 10 is when you start to get to the hard hills. And I just remind myself I'm strong on the hills. And I just know that I'm strong on the hills, and as long as I keep being consistent and follow my plan, I'll be okay. I didn't really it's great seeing the crowds, and I would imagine they obviously, they do pick me up a little bit, but I'm not going to change from running like 640 pace to like 615 pace. Because that's kind of a recipe for disaster once you start going outside of your limits. And so I try to have them fuel me, the crowd, which they definitely did, but, still stick with my game plan. And that's kind of a hard thing to do. You just really, I think the best way to kind of explain it is just kind of stick in your zone, in the zone or race zone, and not let too many, external things try to dictate that.
Right. Now, at some point, did you realize that Sam took a DNF and he withdrew?
No, I didn't. I didn't see him, and I didn't know what was happening. But I mean, I guess what happened, I found out after the race, from the race director, that he overheated and he ended up jumping in the lake, which is not a good thing because you get disqualified. It's I guess he does that quite often, because if he overheats in Boulder, he'll hop in the lake, but you're not supposed to do that when you're racing. So it was a little bit unfortunate with that. And I understand exactly what Sam was going to, because, hey, if you can cool down a little bit and then hop back in the race and get going again. But, yeah, but I didn't know that until after the race. But, and the thing is, yeah, you just never know what's coming behind you. As in, hey, Brent could have had, a really great day, the other day, and, he could have closed the gap on me, and then, it could have been a different race. And that's the beauty of racing. You just never know. And I had no idea I could pull off the win until really, it's never guaranteed until you cross that line.
Right. Because there were, I think, two people that had very similar times to you on the run. Joe Gamble's had a little bit faster, and then was it James Caparel? I'm going to butcher his name. He had 2 seconds faster than you, and then Pedro Gomez also had about a minute faster than you.
Yeah, I wasn't concerned about the people for in 7th, 8th, 9th place, because they're, or whatever place they were, because they were further back. I was just concerned about when I would get a time split. And so the first time split was at mile, right around mile 5.5, 6, when Sam Long was in second. And he was about 3:30 back. And then the second split I had was turn around right about the halfway point. And coming back, that was Joe Gamble's. And he was only, I think, 2.5 minutes back from me. And, I mean, obviously he's making up time. I knew he's making up time. And, however, I still stuck with my game plan. I just said to myself, I'm like, all I can do is run the best of my ability, and I'm just going to stay consistent. And, that's what I tried doing. And I'm like, the next time split, I'll be able to check at the last turnaround, when there's about maybe, I think that was maybe right around mile 18 and a half, right around then. And I just kept saying to myself, well, if he catches me, I know I'm strong in the tail end of an Ironman, that I'll battle him. And I was like, I'll get that last time split. Or who knows? He could have caught me before. And then, so I made the turnaround, and I'm looking at my watch, and then around the bend, I'm trying to see him. Oh, I don't see him. Well, that's a good sign. Then around the other bend, oh, I don't see him. That's good. So I was getting a little bit more excited, knowing like, hey, I could actually win this. And then I think the time split I got was about 4.5 minutes. And then when I saw that, I'm like, okay, I don't need to push Like, I don't need to like absolutely bring myself to the well. I just need to continue to run strong and consistent, which, don't get me wrong, I was in a world of pain still.
Right.
But like once you go to the well, that's when you can start to have issues with cramping and bonking. And I didn't want to go to that spot because I wanted to be on the safe side. And I pushed it to the best of my ability all the way to the finish line, with trying to stay consistent. And I believe looking back at my watch, and I try to run a fairly consistent Ironman. The first half of the Ironman, I ran 6:45 average pace, with all those hills. It doesn't sound that fast, but on those days and those conditions with the bike, especially with the bike, my legs weren't super fresh. And then on the second half was 6:55. So my average was 6:50. So I ran it fairly even, or I at least tried to. But I mean, all things considered, I was happy with the run, even going like 2:58, which was about 2 minutes slower than the fastest run split, which was Joe Gamble. So this 2:56.
Man, like in those hills there, they're not like little mole hills. Like these are hills. They're not easy.
Yeah. Oh, and they're long. You're going up the hill for like minutes, and it's a grind. It feels like a mountain. It doesn't feel like a hill. And it's out there. I'm trying to think if there's a tougher run course that I've done before that has hills I mean, there's some, like Chattanooga has some hills, but not like the grind super long like Lake Placid. So I'd be curious to see if there's another Ironman out there that actually has a tougher run course than that. And, just thinking about 2 years ago, I don't know what the weather was like when Brent broke the course record, but to run a 2:43 on that course, man, that would be like probably at least 5 minutes faster, at least on other courses. So, yeah, it's a brutal run course.
Man. So, when you hit mile, say 22, 23, knowing that you have this in the bag as a win, what are you starting to think about? Are you starting to think about your wife and your little son? Or are you starting to think about what this going to be like to be there? Or where's your mind at?
That's a good question. I think at that time, I'm just so focused and kind of in the zone just to get to the finish line. And I will say, when you get to that level and that exertion, your IQ definitely goes down. So it's not like it's not like you're super, like if you gave me a math problem, it'd probably be about the equivalent of like a third grader,
Right.
But it's one of those things. It's like, what, just get to the finish line and celebrate. Really, once I started the last little bit, once you get into town, you turn right, and then you run about a mile along the lake, and then you do a turnaround and you run kind of a mile back, and then you finish. And then as I'm coming back, the last mile, I remember thinking to myself, all right, I remember giving myself time checks going through like, all right, 5K. So that's only going to be 20 minutes left. I remember saying that 20 minutes left of pain, 20 minutes left of pain. And then when I get to like 2 miles, I'm like, all right, that's only 14 minutes left of pain max. And so I kept on doing that. And I remember even through the turnaround, I'm like with less than a mile, I'm like, all right, 7 minutes max left of pain. So I do remember thinking about that now that you say that. But I remember, coming back into town, where there's, right after you pass the lake, there's a lot of people, on both sides, and they were cheering. And that was the first time that I put my hand up, started to celebrate, when there was probably maybe another 600 meters, maybe 400 meters left, of the race. That's when I really started to celebrate. And I mean, coming down an Ironman, it's always a special moment. You never forget your first Ironman that you do. And this is my 47th full Ironman that I finished. And it was very emotional for me because it meant so many things to me, just, growing up, so close and that being my backyard and having so many memories. And I've wanted to win this, it's literally a dream come true. And, the emotions came rolling out and, crossed the finish line. And, the first people you see, well, besides Mike Riley, I see my family. Which was my dad, my wife and my son. And I had aunts and uncles out there. I had so many other countless numbers of friends and family. And I even had some distant cousins, 2 distant cousins, that did the Ironman for the first time. So, to have that much support, at the finish line and having it mean so much just enhances the experience that much more. It's almost one of those moments where, you pinch me, is this really happening? And so those are the moments that we live for and that we want to remember and share with others. And thankfully, I had lots of other family and friends there to share that with.
Man. So how would you bottle this up and explain this to somebody else to let them experience this and even yourself relive this in the future?
Explain to people about how it feels, or
like raising the banner at a race that you've wanted to win so much. Like, this is something that's amazing to actually accomplish.
Yeah. And that's just it's the accomplishment. And really it's just I was just so appreciative of everything and very grateful, of the whole experience. And you get just the satisfaction when you cross that line. It's all the sacrifices, all the hard workouts that you did. Coming down that finishing chute is something that you'll remember for the rest of your life. And it just, like, everything pays off. And it's just one of those moments. And that's why we do the Ironman. That's why so many people do it, is because you get that feeling. And those are the feelings how you want to live your life. You want to live life with the moments that take your breath away, that make you feel alive. And that's why I do Ironman. That's why I'm still passionate about it, because those are the feelings that I crave. That's why people do multiple Ironmans. That's why I've done 47 Ironmans. That's why people do their first, and some people do more, some people, but every person that does an Ironman, and goes down that finishing chute, and you cross that finishing line and you get that finisher's medal, that's something that you can't take away from you. And everyone that has done that, they'll say that it's something that has touched their life. And that's why I keep on doing these.
Wow. That is really amazing. So after you finish, you get your medal. Well, to back up a little bit, you also do the ALS roll across the finish line, right?
Yes. So every single full Ironman that I do, I do. It's called a Blazeman roll, after John Blaze, and John Blaze had Lou Gehrig's disease, ALS, and he competed in Ironman World Championships a long time ago, and he rolled across the finish line for ALS. And so I always roll across the finish line, in memory of others, but especially in memory of my mother. And to keep that tradition going. I don't think many people do it anymore. Chrissy Wellington used to do it a lot whenever she finished. a number of years ago, but that's kind of my signature finish. When I finish, I always roll in memory of my mother, and Mike Riley, he always announces this, because some people, if they don't know what I'm doing, they're like, kind of laughing. Oh, what's he doing? But thankfully Mike's there to let him know why I'm rolling.
That's pretty awesome. So just like you, I don't have my mother anymore. It's very emotional to hear somebody else talk about their mom as well. So thank you for that.
Yeah, of course.
So you're doing Chattanooga next, and then you have Kona later on this year?
Yeah, that's the plan. I potentially might do something later in the year. I'm thinking about Ironman Florida, since it's drivable distance to me, and you can't always do that with an Ironman. And there hasn't been a pro field there in a long time. So I might do Ironman Florida. But yeah, we'll see when that time comes.
Cool. So we covered a lot about your race here. What's something that you learned about yourself through this race experience that you'd like to share with others?
Through the race experience of Lake Placid?
Yeah.
Let's see. I've learned so much. Now you put me on the spot, and there's so much that I've learned that like I haven't won an Ironman in a long time, and it's not necessarily about winning. It's about the journey, and it's about enjoying it. If I finish first, like I did, or if I would have finished last, it doesn't necessarily, it does change you, but it doesn't. Like it changes me as in, I really appreciate how much, like, finishing first, but if I finished in last, it doesn't change me as a person, as in who I am, because it's how you perceive things in life. And how I perceive things in life is life can always be worse. And in the sense that during the crash, during Ironman World Championships, every day is literally a gift. And if I finish first, or like if I said, if I finish last, it's not the end of the world, because there's life could be a lot worse. And it's like I said earlier, when you go through struggle and a hard time, it changes you as a person. And I mean, now that I've won another Ironman, has it changed me as a person? It hasn't. I'm still going to be the same Matt Russell. I'm still going to work hard. I still want to set a great example for others. I still want, like, being a role model. I still have passion for what I'm doing. But just know that, like, if there's times when it's not your days, and there's other times when it is. And, just know that we all have that inside of us. If it's not your day, like I've had many days that it's not my day, learn from it and grow from it. And, that's what I've done. And, Ironman Lake Placid, it's even it holds a more special place in my heart. And it's, especially breaking, one of the oldest, longest Ironman, bike course record on the circuit. It definitely means something to me, because I've worked hard for it. And no matter what place that we finish, when we finish, that finisher medal looks exactly the same from first place to last place. And with that said, it's all about your character and how, you perceive life. If you perceive life with, a negative thought, or negatively, you're going to affect others in a negative way. But if you can say, hey, it wasn't my day, I'm going to make the most of it, and I'm going to learn from it and grow from it and share this experience, you're going to pick up others, and you're going to pick up yourself too. And I think that's the main message, through this whole thing, is always carry a positive attitude. Don't let yourself get down more than a minute or two. There's definitely days when I've been down, but have those down days make you strong. And that's what I've done through this whole experience.
Man, that's a lot right there. Like positive energy and really being grateful and not just going through something but growing through it is a really good message, I feel like.
Thanks. Yeah, it's you can tell obviously I'm still passionate about what I do. And that's why some of these explanations are a little bit long, just because I do hold a lot of passion in the sport. And I almost say, like, my passion has even grown stronger just because I appreciate things more, and I want to spread that passion. I want to spread that inspiration, because the inspiration is contagious. And hopefully I inspire some other people to be their best, and I just say, hey, keep on spreading that passion and inspiration.
Wow. Matt, we've covered quite a bit about your race here. Do you have anything else you want to add?
I just want to thank everyone for the support, and especially all the volunteers at Ironman Lake Placid. They help dreams come true, and I know what it's like being on the end volunteering, because I've done it in Lake Placid. So thank you to everyone that's volunteered or been a part of Lake Placid or Ironmans. I've done so many Ironmans, and I really appreciate, my wife has made a lot of sacrifices, so much that, I sleep in another room, not all the time, but sometimes, to try to get good sleep. Just cause, training for Ironman is so demanding, and there's days that I have no energy, and my wife, she goes through a lot, because my son, he is high strung and has so much energy, and I love him so much, but some days I just need a rest. And, so she's made so many sacrifices to really have dreams come true, for the whole family. And that's one reason why, I try to do my best in every single race, because I'm not just racing for myself. And, with that, I'm backed by a lot of great sponsors. The great sponsors, I'm backed by, we mentioned some of them, like Tri-Rig, my bike, the Omni. It's been a great journey, so far, riding Tri-Rig, to, breaking the bike course record this past weekend, to Infinite Nutrition, which we talked about, DeBoer wetsuits, Amp Human Performance, Alta Wheels, which we talked about, UFOs, which is sandals, and the Duraderm Sport, which is the liquid bandage to help with chafing, road rash, saddle sores, and also my running shoes, which is on running shoes. And lastly, I got involved with and teamed up with the Ironman Foundation, just because doing something more than sport, as in giving back to the community, and that's what Ironman Foundation does. And that's what I teamed up with them this year. And for Ironman Lake Placid, a couple days before the race, I thought about this idea about, hey, why don't I take my helmet and raffle it off to the highest bidder on eBay, and all of those proceeds will go to Ironman Foundation, and I'll sign it and make a personal note on the helmet. And as I speak, it's actually up on eBay right now, and it has another 6.5 days left to go. Every penny is going to go to the Ironman Foundation, and that's doing something great for the community, and more for sport, and racing for more. And that's there's a lot to be thankful for.
Wow. Matt, you've done 47 Ironmans. probably a lot more 70.3s. What races are still out there that you haven't done that you want to still do?
There's a lot of beautiful races out in Europe I would like to do. I touched on racing a couple in Germany, but there's ones in Austria, Switzerland. There's a lot that I'd like to do. Will I do them all? Who knows? Life's a journey. Pretty much every race that I go with my family, which isn't necessarily always the cheapest if you're going overseas, but, you don't want to live life with what if I did this? What if I didn't do this? Like I always trying to take a little bit of risks with life and it's the experience and memories is what I'm after. So hopefully there's more races in the future that I can do that I haven't done. Like a one in Switzerland or Austria, or ones in London or UK or something like that. And we'll see. Every year there's a clean slate. And then the nice thing about, this journey is I get to pick and choose what races I want to do.
That's so true. So, I know you have a website and you also have a Facebook page and an Instagram page. How can people find those?
Pretty much all under the same thing. Matt Russell Tri. And it's Tri as TRI. So on Instagram and Twitter, it's at Matt Russell Tri. On the website, it's mattrusselltri.com. And on Facebook, I believe it's Matt Russell Professional Triathlete on there. And you can find all that. And you can find the link to the auction for the helmet, because I post it on my social media websites too.
Cool. Well, Matt, I only have one more question for you, and that's, what's your definition of a perfect race?
A perfect race. I think it's an internal thing. A perfect race doesn't mean coming in first. A perfect race is executing to the best of your ability and giving you the feeling of, I know I did my best, and leaving it all out there, really leaving it all out there and knowing that you did your best and having that internal feeling, no matter if it's first place or last place. There's going to be days that you're going to feel great, and there are going to be days that you did not so great, but as long as you did your best to your ability, that's a perfect race.
Was Ironman Lake Placid a perfect race for you?
It was. I mean, the only thing I mentioned is I didn't go to the well, as in I didn't go to the well, as in I didn't pass out. And I was the last 6 miles. If Joe was only 30 seconds behind me, I would have went to the well. If I would have went to the well, there was a good chance I'd take a big risk that I wouldn't even finish. So I raced to the best of my ability that day to get to the finish without having to go to the well. And like I said, going to the well is you're taking a big risk with cramping and, even passing out, which people have done before. And I didn't want to pass out. I wanted to win. So I raced to the best of my ability to the finish line. And thankfully I didn't have to go to the well. Have I gone to the well before? I have. I did leave it out there, Ironman Lake Placid, though. I will say that. But I mean, I was in a world of pain. You're in a world of pain when you're counting down, all right, I only have 20 minutes to go. All right, I only have 15 minutes to go. All right, I only have 10 minutes to go. I mean, sometimes looking back, you're like, oh yeah, I could have went harder. But, long story short, I don't even know if I could go 30 seconds faster. So I know I did my best, and maybe going those 30 seconds faster, I would have passed out. Yeah, I know I did my best. And that's all we can do. Yeah, that's a perfect race, knowing that you did your best, and I did the best of my ability to come in first place. That's what I did.
Oh, well, Matt, I really appreciate your time. I've wanted to have you on the show for so long, and Matt, I'm truly grateful for the time that you've given me today. Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this, and I wish you the best at Chattanooga, Kona, and Florida if you toe the line there.
Thank you. Thanks. And good chatting with you. Some of the responses were a little bit long, but as you can tell, I have a lot of passion.
Well, good. I really wish you the best, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your race season, okay?
Thanks. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. You have a good day, okay?
Thanks. You too.
Thanks for tuning in today. I hope you were able to learn something from today's episode. If you enjoyed the show, please take a minute to leave a review on iTunes or share it with a friend. Be sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. If you'd like to see pictures from this athlete's race, learn more about who I am, what I'm doing, or be on the show yourself to share your story, check out my website at CoachTerryWilson.com. Until next time, continue the pursuit.